Hi, neighbors. Welcome to the senior scene. A recent welcome addition to our fair city of Torrance is the Western Museum of Flight. For today's segment of the scene, we will attend the open house put on by this fine organization. Torrance Municipal Airport's Zamperini Field was the site of the Western Museum of Flight's open house, marking the relocation of the Aviation Museum from the city of Hawthorne to Torrance. Located in the Red Baron No. 3 hangar just west of the General Aviation Building, the 6,500-foot museum was packed with many diverse models, exhibits, and artifacts related to aviation. One of the main attractions of the museum is the F-86 Sabre jet. This darling of the United States Air Force in the late 40s and early 50s had a speed of 685 miles per hour with a range of 1,200 miles. It successfully ruled the skies in the Korean conflict. Here we observe Torrance City Councilman Paul Nowatka, an avid aviation buff and museum member, manning the table, soliciting for new members.
And I'm here at this beautiful Torrance Sunday. We're looking here at the first reception and open house for the Western Museum of Flight. I have the honor of working here today to help them out. We're very proud the Western Museum of Flight has moved here on a temporary basis from Hawthorne. It's my sincere hope that somehow or another we get to make this permanent. My love of airplanes go back to when I was a child. I was born in Buffalo, New York. My dad worked for Curtiss Wright Aircraft, who built the P-40s and the C-46s. When we came out here, I just kept my love for the P-40 and was part of the Curtiss Wright Historical Association here at the Torrance Airport. That association was rebuilding a P-40 Tomahawk that survived the attack on Pearl Harbor. That project eventually moved away, and I'm so proud that we have historical aircraft here in Torrance. I certainly hope that we'll be able to make this the permanent home, so it will be known as the Western Museum of Flight at Torrance.
And the city this time is behind this museum, and I just hope it keeps expanding and have the people come down and see what this museum is all about, the artifacts that are here, the history that is here. It's absolutely phenomenal. And we're having a bunch of airplanes come in today that is going to knock your socks off. P-51, as soon as the weather clears a little bit more, they'll be coming in from Chino and a few other places.
In addition to the dozens of aircraft on display, many owners of vintage planes dotted the sky as they piloted their aircraft to Zamperini Field, where they added their planes to the exhibit.
The sun is breaking through, and it's the Western Museum of Flight's first event here at Torrance Airport. We're newly relocated from Hawthorne Airport. It's our preview day. I've got about 38 warbirds arriving, and we want to acquaint the community with their rich aviation history of Southern California. And what we bring to this community is education, an interest in aviation, the history of aviation, and a reverence for the men and women that designed, built, and flew these aircraft. And we are thrilled to be here at Torrance, our new home.
After my brief interview with Cindy, she was on her way, greeting incoming pilots and helping the top-notch ground crew direct aircraft positioning. Let's take a stroll down memory lane and view some of the planes from yesteryear. A plane that drew a large viewing audience was this non-military Lockheed Electra. This twin-engined, all-metal monoplane is similar to the one flown by Amelia Earhart on her ill-fated flight in 1937 while trying to circle the globe. A delighted audience looked skyward as two P.T. Starman Navy trainers put on a brief acrobatic show. After their show, one of the Starmans can be seen here making an approach, executing a landing, and approaching the exhibition line for parking. Here comes the second Starman trainer. After getting out of the plane's cockpit, the pilots of both Starmans renewed old friendship.
Dave, that was quite an air show you put on for the people down here.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure coming on out to Torrance Airport and bringing the old bird out here. This, if you're familiar with it, it's 1940 N2S-3 Stearman. It was used in the World War II as a primary trainer of World War II. Anybody that was going to learn to fly anything at all in World War II learned to fly this first. This weeded out the pilots. This was the hardest airplane actually they learned to fly first. This airplane here was also featured in the TV series Jag, if you're familiar with the TV series that's now off the air, but it made 9 episodes, and it was a pleasure working with them.
Vic, I understand you're one of the Tuskegee Airmen. Is that right?
That's right. I'm one of the 332nd Fighter Group out of the Tuskegee Airmen Group.
Can you tell me a little bit about this ship here?
Well, you know, I was cutting my teeth on these things when I was like 9 to 10 years old, okay? And this is one of the better aircraft that's ever been made. I think Stearman's probably the best one. It's easy to play with. It's easy to have fun with. They're also good for crop dusting. They're doggone good for training.
While both Starmans were being eyed by a curious audience, a SNJ naval trainer was led to its position on the flight exhibition line. This advanced trainer has a speed of 205 miles per hour and was used extensively during the World War II era. Here comes a huge aircraft lumbering into Zamperini airspace. It looks like the NZAN-2, a Russian-designed plane. This giant single-engined biplane was used by the communist countries and is identified by its red star on its tail.
The airplane behind me is an Antonov AN-2 designed in Russia in 1946 primarily for agriculture purposes, crop dusting, moving livestock around. But it became such a good airplane that it was used by all of the communist nations as a workhorse. This specific airplane was built in Poland in 1984 and was used as a paratrooper training aircraft. The airplane started production in 1947 and they still build them today in China. So it is the largest single-engine biplane ever designed and built in history and has the longest production run of any airplane in history. This airplane is part of the Commemorative Air Force assigned to the 3rd Pursuit Squadron at Cable Airport in Upland, California. As the 3rd Pursuit Squadron were patterned after the original 3rd Pursuit Squadron of the Flying Tigers, the Hells Angels.
Speaking about aircraft used by the communists, this CJ-6A primary trainer was called the Nanchang and was used by the Chinese. Here's a look-see of the complicated instrument panel.
This is a Nanchang CJ-6A Chinese primary trainer. Built in 1958 is when it first went into service. The plane is still actively used by the military today. So that's next year will be its 50th year of training pilots, making it probably the most significant trainer ever built because it's trained for 50 years. No other airplane has ever been in service that long. Primary trainer would mean that you would go out, learn how to fly, do basic aerobatics, navigation skills, air combat, and in this particular case, since it was a Soviet block country, you would go from this airplane into a MiG fighter. And now that we have won the Cold War, thankfully, we have these as our play toys. And so we have groups that fly at Oshkosh, Sun and Fun. We do some air combat with them, a lot of formation flying.
The Fokker S-11 seen here was used in initial pilot training. It is named after its designer manufacturer, Dutch-born Anthony Fokker, an aviation pioneer who built World War I planes for Germany.
During World War II, the Germans occupied the Fokker factory. When they left Holland, they took the Fokker factory with them, and it took the Dutch until 1950 to get the factory back up and running, and this is the first aircraft they built, designed and built. This particular aircraft was number 11 off the line. It was a primary trainer for the Dutch Air Force and Navy, the Italian Air Force, the Israeli Air Force, and they were also built under license in Brazil for the Brazilian Air Force, and the Brazilians furnished a couple to Uruguay and Paraguay. This airplane is, right now, it's the only one flying in the U.S., and just come out of a 6-year restoration. I've been flying the airplane for approximately 10 years.
This North American-built T-28 was used during the Vietnam era. It has a speed of 250 miles per hour, with a range of 400 miles.
I was a captain for Western Airlines and Delta, and formerly a fighter pilot in the Air National Guard, and also worked at Lockheed as a test pilot on a 104. We bought this airplane here just to kind of keep in the warbird movement. I flew it in the Air Force back in the early 50s, and it's a T-28. This one, particular one, happened to come out of the Nicaraguan Air Force, where it was actually a fighter bomber, so it does have a war record on it. The airplane was designed in the late 50s as a transition trainer for the jet, which is really a hard thing to do for a propeller-driven airplane. It didn't really fit as a transition trainer, so it was usurped by the Lockheed airplane. These airplanes were surplus for as low as $500, and they went off to various Central American countries as fighter bombers. And then they came back, were re-engined, strengthened, and then they were used in Vietnam as fighter bombers there, carrying one massive load, let me tell you. They did a magnificent job in Vietnam, and they're quite highly thought of. This one here happens to be the first version, the Air Force version with the 800-horse engine. The later ones used in Vietnam went up to as high as 1,435 horsepower.
A plane that appeared to be a crowd favorite was the glamour plane of World War II, the P-51 Mustang.
This airplane was actually built in 1944 at what was Mines Fields, and it's now LAX. And this is the fighter really that made it possible for the bombers to make it all the way to the targets in Berlin nonstop, because they had the range to do it. The previous fighters would get to the target, but then by the time they got there, they were out of gas. So when this came along, because it has a two-stage blower, it was able to go to real high altitude, like 40,000 feet, and have the long range. Thus, many say this is the airplane that won the war. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly, the current owner will tell you that he's pretty sure that because of this, the P-51 and the P-38, that he's probably still alive today. He was a B-17 lead navigator with 33 missions in the 8th Air Force. 6 50 caliber machine guns. Red line on it is about 505 miles an hour. You never go that fast, of course, but it was a 400-mile-an-hour airplane in its day. Fabulous airplane. And I think, you know, they were designed as a 100-hour throwaway airplane, and here we are 60 some odd years later, and it's a magnificent machine indeed.
Another crowd favorite was the A-1 Skyraider. This Douglas-built plane was used in the Korean conflict and Vietnam War as a medium attack aircraft. It could fly at 322 miles per hour with a range of over 1,300 miles.
This is quite an airplane. This is an airplane that will carry more of a load than a B-17. This is an airplane that can go on a 12-hour mission, and it can carry so much armament and stay on